Hello and welcome to this episode of. Are we calling it 2 of 16?
For now.
Okay, well, I'm James. This is Derek. And we had a topic that I just raised up right before this, which is the idea of wealth beyond money. The idea of wealth beyond money. And I want to discuss what I had to think about that and I'd love to know what Derek has to think about that. First, I'll elaborate on what I mean. One idea that comes to mind is we are currently living in South Korea, and history talks a lot about something called the Miracle on Han River, which is immediately after the Korean War in the 50s. Korea went through a long period of just exponential or very high double digits GDP growth for like 2 decades. And it's interesting to think about what the source of that is, because Korea was definitely not a wealthy country, so there must have been something else. Other things in my own personal life are things like I have a lot of my own personal stability and my own life trajectory. I owe a lot of it to my family connections, extended family. And so, yes, I wanted to just lay out the topic about wealth beyond money. And I'd love to know what Derek has to think about that. Anything that comes to mind.
My initial thought, the way I would put that is money isn't everything. Growing up the way I had, well, that's not what I mean is like I was surrounded by people that, for whatever reason, their financial education stops at money goes in the bank, you save all your money, and the more money you have, the better. Okay, that is it. That was the end of it. And so I suppose that means less money equals less wealth in their eyes. Frankly, I think the terminology wealth was lost on them. I feel if you were to ask someone, again, I'm just talking about the geographical area in which I grew up and the people around whom I grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
You probably have to tell them what the word meant. But if you did, they'd probably think, oh, so you mean money, right? Okay, well, no, that's not what it means. So I had to sort of learn on my own through just various trials and tribulations of what a dollar's worth, so to speak. I think that's where it starts.
Okay. Okay.
I've met plenty of people, they just don't know. Like when I was living in New York, I had a lot of rich friends in Manhattan. It was the complete opposite. Like money meant nothing to them because they just used their mother's or father's money, taking taxis, going here and there, tipping everybody. It didn't mean anything to them. So they never learned the value of a dollar. So I think that's something that is at least somewhat a starting point, a starting ground for learning what wealth is understanding what a dollar is or what fiat currency really is and how far it goes. Because money, again, isn't everything. So it's not about how many dollars you have. It's more about, for me personally, so if I fast forward to now, and I'll maybe go back to the past again, for me now, wealth is financial freedom.
Okay.
What does financial freedom mean? The ability to do whatever I want, essentially, bereft of having to care about money or care about finances. That means, what does that mean? That means having maybe multiple businesses set up, passive income, and it also means having assets, and reducing the number of liabilities in my life. What are liabilities? I'm not talking about just physical things. I'm also talking about health, for example. You can have wealth in health. Mm-hmm. You could be an extremely unhealthy person and have a ton of money, own all the property in the world. It's not going to matter if your time is limited for some health concern.
Mm-hmm.
So it all ties together with, for me, now this is still really just talking about financial and personal wealth. This isn't talking about anything else that we're probably going to touch base on. But my first instinct is to talk about myself usually and what wealth means. You mentioned the phenomenon that occurred in Korea. Yes, in the 1970s, there was this this boom where just everything with the whole entire country was just built up. It felt like, oh, I wasn't alive then, but it felt like it was overnight, and it was just insane. Now, while this is amazing, it also created a lot of issues. People had to speed up. Like culture had to move along with it, and culture is not a fast moving thing. So I feel like the speed of building the infrastructure was going like this, while culture is like lagging behind. So it was like much slower. So it didn't get as far. And here we are, fast forward to 2024, and we're still playing catch up in that regard.
Whoa, absolutely.
Yeah, so I would say the cultural wealth has diminished somewhat from this phenomenon, and needs to regrow. Whereas the infrastructural wealth, or I don't know what you would call that one, the wealth of the country, or I don't know how you look at it. I mean, just that growing
Material wealth.
material
perhaps?
wealth, if you
Material
will,
wealth.
sure, has grown substantially.
I can hear that. I have a few branches I'd like to go down. First of all, I would actually like to start personally, because we have currently been running, me and Derek, we get along, and we've been running experiments recently in the realm of networking, getting to know people, meeting new people, connecting with them on platforms. And I would love to ask you, and I would love to ask you first, what you see in that. Is there value in, is that also a form of wealth beyond, because the topic I'd love to talk about is wealth beyond money. And so I'm wondering if, for example, having a large network, can it make up for not having any money?
If I answer the first question, my view is it's two-sided. I feel like the more I expand my network, the more my sort of social growth grows, but my introverted my private wealth diminishes. Because in one requirement of networking is being active in said network, at least to a certain extent. For an INTJ, we want less is better, or less is more. So we will do the minimum to keep that thing running smoothly. Whereas some people might feel the necessity to connect every day or as much as possible in order to continue those relationships. However, I would say yes. The networking that we have accomplished in a mere 2 months is massive, and while the fruits of our not labor, but the fruits of our endeavor, let's call it, have not yet grown into fruit. But I think, as you mentioned previous times, the seeds have been planted, and those seeds, as long as we keep watering them, again, I'll water them least as possible. As long as we continue to water them and grow them, they will turn into something. And then the second part of the question was, will that replace, or rather...
Can that replace material, can that replace currency?
It can. It can, but it's not guaranteed, just like anything. Because leads and networks and all these things, like these, basically I see it as a network. Okay, what I mean is like a physical web where there's more of like nodes on a graph. And so the more networking you do, the more nodes you have, and actually you are adding the branches that come off of that network, or off of that node. Because let's say so we are group A, and we meet a person from group B. Now we may have an indirect connection to everyone in group B. And then theoretically, I don't know how far it would go, we would have extensively connections to groups further yet, person by person. So the potentiality for growing wealth in that case is higher, sure. And like, for example, you meet someone and you come up with an idea, and then that turns into a company, it turns into a business, turns into an idea, turns into who knows what, then you will reap the benefits of that, and that will eventually equal money anyway. So yeah, I say that would be the case. In fact, if you limit yourself to just worrying about money and trying to find money, you're less likely to network, and you're less likely to build those nodes and have those nodes, so your connections are very limited. Absolutely. And so you have very limited options, and you maybe only have one path to go down.
Absolutely. That's very interesting. I right when you said that, you had me think about a person that doesn't have many options, what are they poorest in? And the light up thought in my head was, actually they might be poorest in support and connections. I wonder.
Actually, and I'm not sure if this answers that, if it's not just me thinking of something else, but like, what I would say is like, I've known plenty of people who had hardly any money. I mean, they would just work a normal job. But they were happier than I am maybe now, or let's not compare it to myself. They were very happy. And they had a lot of friends. And they knew each other. They go into a bar, they go into a shop, like they know each other and they get discounts and all that stuff. That's the same type of network. And so while it's not building them financial wealth, it still is a wealth beyond that. And I feel like it's a far more, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for here. I think it's better. I'm kind of blanking on what I want to say because it's a feeling and I don't know how to describe it. But it's I feel like that's where the happiness comes from. It's this idea that I can rely on other people, they can rely on me, and this is a good feeling, I would imagine. Not being that type of person originally. And so that's what I'm getting at, is that that's not at all regarding money there. And it's not even related to financial wealth. It's not related to materials either. It's just more of a social wealth. Or is that a word?
Absolutely.
I don't think I really answered what you were asking, but
Oh, you did. And I hear when you say social wealth, I think about social net, and I think about, for example, so my brother's friend from college, he wanted to attend a certain event in San Francisco, and he reached out to his network in San Francisco, and I happen to live in San Francisco, and he asked if he could spend the night at my place. Because I knew my roommates, and because we had an open couch, and I asked for if he could stay that one night, he was able to stay for free in San Francisco that day. Once again, I feel this is kind of the realm of wealth beyond money, where it comes from things that are easy to give. That couch is open, and I think a lot of these social networks has this kind of idea of things that are easy to give. Even though no one has money, they can give each other things that are easy to give. And I have this faint thought about perhaps the miracle on Han River may have had similar attributes to this. Any thoughts here?
I can't speak to the latter part of that, as I'm not sure how that actually worked. I just know what the results of the work was and are now. And like you said, some things I would say are easy for some people to give and not easy for others. Like
Absolutely. Yeah.
Donald Trump could ask to sleep on my sofa, and I'd probably say no, because I don't want anybody sleeping on my sofa. So what I mean there is like social networking or that type of networking. It's like you still have your own choice of how that works and stuff. Like I don't like the idea of something being forced upon me, and that's how that would feel. Is that how things worked? If I were to speculate regarding the Han River, what's it called? Phenomenon? Miracle? I mean, I honestly don't see it as a miracle. And so while I will denote that there are a lot of things did occur and that things came out of the things that were done, it doesn't mean I agree with the approach. And you might think, well, from a TE perspective, that they did it perfectly because they just made plans and executed them. But I feel that while it looks on the surface that everything grew really fast and really well, or things are looking well, I would say it was done very sloppily, and there's a lot of backlash to that. A lot of buildings that were built, just a lot of infrastructures were built have fallen apart. I'm talking like physically, bridges, buildings, and stuff are just collapsing on people. And this is the type of stuff that happens when you quickly and you just come up with an idea and you just try to cookie cut it and just go one and keep doing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And in Korea, the biggest issue I find with the SJs that live here is that they're all about just getting stuff done, but they don't actually reflect on. I just think it's poor planning, and I feel like they could have taken more time to do it. And the cultural side that I mentioned earlier also was not brought up to speed very much. It was just like, oh, he's doing it and she's doing it. We're all doing it. We all have to work together. There was that group mind, which is maybe part of what you want to talk about, the group wealth of the networking. The mind was, let's do this. But to me, it just felt like, it feels like something that was very forceful. It was like an ocean wave washing over everyone and pushing everyone forward like a tidal wave. I guess that pulls you in. And I feel like I would imagine a large portion of people didn't really have any choice in the matter. It was just, this is what we're doing or else. And that to me is a bit violent, and just not, I'm going to use the word fair, for lack of a better word, for the citizens of Korea. Just in the name of, we want to grow fast and be we want to be number one. And I feel like that's where that competitiveness that exists today came from. I don't know if it existed prior to the wars and all the occupations and things, so I can't speak to that. But when I watch movies about the Joseon Dynasty, which was the dynasty before all this stuff, people just kind of, did what they do. Things seem more peaceful then than they are now. I'm talking socially, but maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I don't know that much about the Joseon Dynasty. I'm going off of like TV shows, so.
Okay. I mean, all I can speak to really is, over time I've learned how TE works, and that what you speak to me sounds very TE, which is, hey, we're going this way, and if you're not going that way, get out of the way. And that's what I hear is the spirit of what you're talking to.
And these are assumptions. Like I said, I'm speculating, so I can't see any other way that would have gone as fast as it did and worked as well as it did.
Yes.
But I feel like that mindset has continued into to present times, at least with the elders of the country.
Yes, and I find it very interesting. We can that the new generation is questioning that, and I think there is actually a period of reflection happening right now, where TE was in the lead. TE was leading the country for a long time, and now that we have, perhaps now that the tidal wave has crashed, perhaps there are other viewpoints being considered at the moment. That's kind of the MZ generation reflection.
Yeah, my understanding is that such a thing is occurring currently. I'm not really up to speed on what's going on with young persons. I keep hearing this, so I'm hoping that's the way it's going. I feel like it's the same in other countries as well.
Yes.
So until I see what direction we're actually going in, again, that just looks like speculation too, until I see some sort of progress happening. But if I look, for example, at the government here or that type of thing, I would say that there's been zero progress whatsoever. You have people in their late 80s working in positions that they don't belong in, and they decide how things go, and like they're not even listening to the young people, despite the fact that they're eligible to vote. So to me, this is something that should change sooner than later. Not that it's not my place to say anything, because I'm not yet a Korean citizen. But yeah, that's my observation.
I really feel that if one is to believe that the government will be a leading indicator of a country or a culture, I think that is simply wishful thinking. I think there will be other sectors of a society that will be the leading indicators. For example, startup culture and artists. This idea that's what I think.
I agree with you there. If it weren't so much the case here, where there's a lot more control over what people do and influence on people by government and by local governments.
Mm-hmm.
You see the signs on the streets and all this stuff. People just tell each other what they have to do, and like, you must follow the Yu-Gi-Oh or the Confucianist beliefs, blah blah blah. But then, like you said, in other sectors, I mean, looking at the startup culture here, which is still in the infant stages, it does exist. There's a lot going on there, and there's a lot of changes that are coming and that have already begun to happen. Yep. How much influence that has on the whole of society here, again, I can't really speak to that, but I will say technology, etc., has caused a lot of changes to occur. I'm just talking about the overall mindset of the whole country. I mean, I have no idea.
Okay. Well, yeah, so I was mostly talking to, for example, Miracle on Han River, perhaps, this is my theory, that there was a lot of wealth in the country, culturally at first, I would say. This is the theory that I can see. And then I'll look to see if we can move to a different example, to be honest. Initially, from Joseon Dynasty, the Korean culture was very rich already, as in that there was a shared unified identity, and people wanted to help each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a form of wealth that you don't have in every community. A divided community is less wealthy if there's no other form of wealth. I would propose. And then on top of that, one of the first focuses they had was in developing their education. And so a large educated and unified workforce perhaps was this form of wealth that was not currency that could have pushed them forward. That's a theory I have.
It's possible. I mean, I can only really speak to my experiences in the past 15 years of being here, so, and even those are so limited to, my point of view, so I really can't speak much more than I have already on any topic regarding wealth in the sense of social wealth or whatever you put it.
Yeah. I would also speak to actually our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think I've really enjoyed our conversations, and this podcast especially probably would not have existed unless we met. So I'm glad we went to. I mean, it was just a random Friday going out to get drinks, and then it turned out we had a lot in common, and things came out of those conversations. So. That's what I have to say about that.
Yeah, the conversations that that we're having, I'm not sure how that ties into wealth per se.
Well, things are created as a result of our combined thoughts.
Right, but that depends on how you define wealth in that sense. Like, to me, creating something doesn't equate to wealth until something happens. And for me, that something has to be a bit more impactful, I think, than it is for you. Whereas I think everything you experiment with or create is considered growing wealth. I don't know what kind of wealth you want to call it, like educational wealth or, well, I don't know what it is. So I don't know. I have to put a label on it. Otherwise, I'm just like, yeah, we're doing stuff. Do I know where it's going? No, but we have an idea of where we want to go. So for me, that's like, yeah. And I feel like once we get to the next stop on the journey, then I can evaluate from there and see like what we've gained. But like up until now, if I just talk about gains, I've learned more about myself, I suppose. Not learned more about myself, just I had my eyes sort of somewhat open to things that I haven't thought about, if I can put it that way. That has caused me to do things I wouldn't have done before. But that has been a double-edged sword. Some stuff has affected me positively, and some stuff actually has affected me negatively. The ones that have affected me negatively, I'm going to have to cut and get rid of, and not have to, I'm just gonna have to ignore again or something. But at the same time, I feel like overall it's going to be a new, another level of maturity that I'm going to be reaching, and that I have already reached. And I guess you can find wealth in that, obviously. Other than that, like, I think the most important thing that has come from what we're doing is, with this, what we're doing here, this is sharing knowledge. So we're actually spreading wealth out. So it's like welfare or something. I don't know what you want to call it. Social welfare?
I would actually say it's networking.
Networking? Okay, yeah, it is, but that was not the point of what I'm saying there. Like, the network, and then I was going to go to the networking side of things. In general, all the people we meet, all those uncomfortable conversations and conversation starters that we have to go through in order to meet the people we normally wouldn't have, especially as introverts, has provided probably more wealth or will provide more wealth in the future than anything else we've done thus far. And that does include this podcast, which is obviously not something that I would have done, at least. Comfortably. I mean, I still don't like doing it, but when people start engaging with us, then I'll think, yeah, this is worth it, because I can talk to people, learn their point of view and insights, and we might find out that they have something to offer us and we have something to offer them. That would be great. And it's the same thing with meeting people in person. You don't know what that person might need from you, and you don't know what you might need from them. We've met people in the hospitality sector. We've met people in various businesses. We've met people not anyone in the government. Oh no, I've met people that are working for the government here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you were there for that conversation. I met them at another thing. I've met people in the tech all over. I mean, we've gone to the tech meetups, and I've met people that work for Microsoft, work for Google, work for all these companies and stuff. You know, you wouldn't know that by looking at them. You wouldn't know that person until you put yourself in a position to have these interactions. So that is certainly important. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, like going back to things that are easy to give. We met that person in hospitality, director of relations, and he offered. He said, you know, come visit the hotel that he works for at any time. And I imagine it's fairly easy to give service to us if we go, and that's just a certain bond in the network. Again, things that are easy to give. That's not easy for me to give. Here's another example. We're at Take One Studio right now. We pay a nominal fee to record this, but we didn't have to buy any of this equipment. It's an excellent networking person to know, the owner of this place, and it also has this feeling of like this is a normal thing to do here, like recording and creating content, and so I feel somewhat like, again, yes, we planted the seeds, we've started our lives, we've started our careers. I feel as content creators in the studio. Any thoughts come to mind?
No, what came to my mind was I don't want to call it the negative aspects, but the difficult aspects for me regarding networking is the weight of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Because the more people with whom you network, the more you're responsible to continue that network or to potentially give back or whatever it might be. And so for me, what I see is this: like the more people if I know 2 people, now I have to keep in touch with 2 people. If I know 10 people, now I have to keep in touch with 10 people. And my eyes start widening, and I get very stressed out about that because I don't really find it easy to keep up relationships with people I've met.
Mm-hmm.
So while that's not required of networking, I mean, the first meet is the most important thing, and getting contact information. That at least is maybe not the most important thing, but it's certainly important. But nurturing the seeds that we plant is a sense of responsibility, and that is what will take effort. And therefore, the more vast our network becomes, the more I will feel, at least for now, maybe not later, more of a social responsibility that I'm not comfortable with. So that's something that's a personal goal of mine, is to be able to learn how to become comfortable with that, and learn maybe create a strategy that I can utilize to minimize the effort on my end and streamline that process.
Sure.
Maintenance. It sounds like maintenance, and I'm not a big fan of it.
Just a reframe that immediately comes to mind is, well, the first question that comes to mind in my head is, or perhaps remark is, these are people too. They're living their own lives. I'm not that important to them, and so that sense of responsibility doesn't sound very real, to be honest, because it's not like whether I do or I don't, their lives are going to be that heavily affected.
I think you're misinterpreting me. I mean, I'm speaking from an INTJ point of view, and I'm just telling you how I would like to manage things, and so, my point just is that whether I'm not thinking at all about affecting them. I don't care at all.
Mm.
What I'm talking about is, if I want to have a relationship with someone, and I want to, us to benefit from each other as much as possible, then I have to have a good rapport with them, and I have to, have conversations with them once in a while. But if I have a network of 1,000 people, and let's say only 10 of those are relevant at the moment, those 10 are the ones I need to cultivate. The other remaining 990 are just there. I don't feel any responsibility to talk to them. That's not what I meant. What I do mean is, the more I meet people and the more we're doing stuff, the bigger we grow our system, so to speak, the more responsibility there is to keep in touch with these people. Mm-hmm. Is it something we will do on our own? Well, possibly not. Later on, if we build a company, somebody else will do outreach, right? Mm-hmm. They'll be the ones schmoozing or keeping in touch or checking in on our contacts. So I'm just thinking big picture. I don't care about the person themselves. I care about, if I've used effort to do something, I want it to be worth it. It's not worth it if I lose it. Again, that's an INTJ way of looking at it, though. I don't expect you to understand it or agree with it, but it is certainly how things will go well in the path that I'm going down, is if I do those things.
So I'd like to talk to other topics I was thinking about with this specific topic about wealth beyond money. My father was sales support for his companies, and what he observed is a lot of like the top salespeople of these tech companies would, they would make great sales outcomes for this company, move to another company, and immediately make more great sales outcomes because they've developed these strong relationships with these industry insiders, and these people trust these people, and so reach out, share what the product is because they know each other and because it's clear that there is value to be had here. Again, there's money immediately made. A related topic is, for example, professional video game players or anyone that has an audience. That audience is a form of wealth as well, where when they retire from their sport, and for example, Kobe Bryant starts an online video channel, people are immediately going to watch that because they remember Kobe Bryant, the basketball player. So I think I'm remaining still in the social sphere of wealth beyond money. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about what I'm thinking about here.
Who are you in that scenario? The viewer?
Are
you Kobe Bryant?
I'm raising ideas about wealth beyond money.
Yeah, I guess I can agree with you. The business side, the business story that you told makes sense, and that's where I'm more fluent. Whether or not the people who play my video games are useful, I don't know. I mean, if I get feedback from them, perhaps, but I don't know that game studios are even looking at that sometimes.
Well, I'm talking about like. Okay, let's ignore video games. Let's talk about Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant, as a brand, has value regardless of how much money he has.
Or him being alive.
Well, yeah. Okay, let's talk about Michael Jordan then. Okay, Michael Jordan.
Yeah, it's not about money. That's exactly it. It's the network, but it's simplified. It's what we already talked about. It's just he has people that trust him. He has fans. He's known to have done other things in the past, so therefore he's reliable. He's accountable, perhaps, and he offers value to people that find value in what he offers.
And really, all of simply his fan base is already wealth. He can give away all his money right now, and then he's going to get another check this year from Air Jordan's shoes. I think politicians tap into that all the time.
Well, I was thinking like how I knew politicians had something to do with it, but like I would love to avoid that at any cost.
Mm-hmm. Well, when a politician says, like, we live in the greatest country in the world, then he is essentially tapping into a cultural pride that can be converted directly into monetary income.
I think doing that, something seems sinful. Using pride as a resource. And that's what I mean. Like, that's my personal morals would try to avoid doing something like that if possible. So that's why I think tapping into cultural wealth in the way that a politician would, to me, is just out of my moral zone. I don't know my moral character.
If we narrowed the paradigm, if we narrowed the perspective here, and we talked about your own personal life, are there things that you take pride of, or are there things that you take pride of in your history, in your life, that you're proud that you did? And is that a source of energy or life force?
I've purposefully tried not to do that because it doesn't. I think it's just a short-lived thing. Like let's say, I got a degree. There was a point in time where I was like, I'm the only person in my family to ever have gone to university, and that feels prideful. But then I thought, who cares? And so I humbled myself. So every time I think like that, I usually say, don't think like that, because it's nothing. Because how are you right now? How do you feel right now is what matters. I don't want to use some I don't know, just some accomplishment as something to be proud of. I don't know. I think if I had like a child, maybe,
Yeah.
I would be proud of that.
Yeah.
Or maybe a decent, if I like had a family or something like that, I would feel some sense of pride. But I think even then, I would still try to humble myself
Yeah.
and say like, you know what, it's not a pride thing. It's a love thing. Like there's something there that I'm taking care of. It's responsibility, and I feel okay or good about that. I can take care of that. I don't know. That's pride though.
Well, that's interesting. I hear two things. One is that it makes sense, I think, reflecting on an INTJ's worldview, that something that was done in the past, you'd rather not think too much about. You'd rather move forward.
Yeah, because I used to do that. I would look at it, and then I end up in this like, it just doesn't go well. One minute I'm looking at something I might be proud about, and then next thing I'm looking at flaws of things I did during like the process to get there, and how I could have done it better, and it's a nasty, nasty little pitfall or whatever, however you want to call it. So I try to avoid that because it's not productive.
The second thing I hear is that I think there is, or there are businesses out there that tap into parents' desire to improve on their children's lives or take care of their children. And so I hear a sort of life force idea there, which I connect to money myself. So in a way you can say that you are tapping into parents' pride. You say, hey, does your child have a interest in art? Well, we have an art school, and if you pay us, then we will we will introduce your child to art and improve their skills, for example.
I'm probably the type of person who's likely to homeschool my child, or have them homeschooled. So I'm not really wanting. I don't really react well to other people telling me that they're going to do something to my children. I would rather have more say in that and because my goal is would be to raise them as best as I can, and so I would hope that somebody would be responsible for that and that it would be as close to home as possible, because I don't trust the current systems we have available. Yeah.
I see.
I feel like they would be far more educated, because then they can be educated on, for example, financial education. Like, you do not learn financing at all, at least in American schools. I don't think you learn in Korea either. And so that type of thing is something I would make. Like, I would have control over what they would learn. And so while that looks like, oh, it's just he needs control, it's just if I feel like I know what's best for my child, then I think I should have say over that than an outside influence, is all I'm saying. I don't think society has any say in how my children are raised.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great, and I assume that there would also be avenues for value generation in that direction as well. I'm talking about opportunities for others to contribute to this through providing some sort of value. For example, manufacturing art supplies.
Yeah, okay. I'm not going to disagree.
Maybe that's more of a NE way of looking at things. Just seeing how everything's connected. That would be an interesting thing to mull over. Like, is there a almost systematic way to convert an NE explanation into something that NI can understand, or NE. Can you convert an NE explanation into a TE explanation in a way that is not taxing to the mind? I think there are things that we value in each other's way of thinking that is not directly like from sharing thoughts. There's perhaps like that's what I want to explore. Like, for example, in a networking event, I'm open to meeting people, and there is no purpose, and thus I'm able to do that. And I wonder if there's something.
Well, that's what I've told you before. It's not a simultaneous thing. So for example, what I'll do is the reason why I like to pair up in these situations is you go from table, let's say there's a bunch of tables and you want to meet everyone. I do not. However, I want to decide with whom I'd like to speak. It is much easier for me to do that if you've already broken the ice and I'm already able to observe how each person reacts to your conversation, and then I will decide, boom, target, and I go. It's the same with the sniper situation. It's like you point me in a certain direction. In this case, I'm sort of pointing myself. I'm following you. I don't really engage. So I will be right next to you, though. In fact, I love this. Is perfect scenario for me. Is being with another person while they start talking. It has nothing to do with fear. It has nothing to do with, I can't talk to you. It's, I don't want to. And so you talk. I'm like, and I just pretend to participate until we get to the table that has the person with whom I want to speak. Then that's when I unlock. And you can just float away if you want, or be in, like, again, you can do the opposite. You can not participate in the conversation or just kind of be there while I execute on whatever it is I'm trying to do. And then when I'm like, all right, I'm done, we go right back to the NE world. I love that combination. And that's what I think is very, at least for me, is very useful. And that is where we sync up really well.
Okay. Well, what I hear in that is that that is a situation where neither of us have to agree to anything, and simply by acting as ourselves, there is a synergy, like kind of.
It is synergistic.
I was afraid of saying that, but I guess I can say that when both of us act naturally in that situation, there is mutual benefit to be had.
So you can apply this now to the conversations that we have and see why sometimes they're complex and sometimes they aren't. You can start out with the NE, and then I try to listen, and then when you ask me a question, that is that moment. That is where I then hit the question with my answer. Now,
Perhaps.
because that's a little bit more structured, that is more difficult on my side because I don't always have a response. And so I have to choose to which questions I would like to respond to, just like I would choose to whom I would speak.
And perhaps I wonder if having some bigger picture goal in mind.
Yeah, then I'm good.
Would help. It would also help me direct and know when to ask you.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh.
Yep.
This is Derek's job here, or, you know.
Yep. But that sounds like pre-planning, which is not something you're a big fan of.
Well, I think once it's clear that we need to do it, then I'm open to it.
Yeah. The reason why I think this is very important to discuss on air is because this is something that is far more precious than us talking about what wealth is to us, in my opinion. Because these are the connections that are really going to help other people out in the real world. Be like, you know, I'm an INTJ, I struggle with this type of... It might not just be INTPs, it could be ENTPs or I think MPs or, you know, that type of... Someone who's similar to you, and they're just like, man, I just don't know why. I'm friends with this person, it's just not working out. And now we've talked through it, and now they will benefit from that. And I think that is wealth right there. Spreading wealth. Because we're doing the hard parts. Getting that out of the way so that the people that are out there can be like, yeah, man, that's pretty cool. I'm going to do that. No, I'm trying to talk like INTP. Wow.
That's an interesting idea.
That's an interesting idea, generally. So, while it seems very harsh, the things we're going through here, I think it's for me at least, it's very stressful. I don't speak for you.
I felt a bit of stress.
Yeah, I think that's the most productive thing, because the things that are hard to do, the things that no one's willing to do, the things that people can't do are the things that we will do, and that is what will make us more valuable. And we will create value through that.
Fascinating.
Not to say that they're not capable. They will want to do this, but it takes someone to show them the way, maybe. Or there's all kinds of ways you can look at this.
So seek negativity and fighting.
Yes.
Yes.
What I mean is don't avoid conflict, because then you don't know what it is. I'm sure there's a proverb there or something. Someone said something similar. Not that, but
don't avoid it. Don't avoid it, at least. Yeah.
Because you learn nothing. It's just like you do not learn how to run a business or how to be an entrepreneur or how to be successful in business unless you fail. If you're successful the first time, that's luck, but that means you're more likely to suffer later.
Yeah. People say you suffer your success.
Yeah.
If you don't know how you got it, then you suffer it.
Precisely.
It's like standing on rickety stilts. It's like,
yeah. So that is where I wanted to bring us, and that is where we've come, and now I think we've come full circle. And can end this very painful discussion.
Oof. It's
with a smile, though.
Growing
pains?
The phrase growing pains comes to mind. Interesting. Yeah, well, what do you think?
I think that this was productive.
Okay, productive, and Do you also feel like that should be the wrap up of today's episode? Okay, well, it feels natural to say goodbye here, so we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.
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 Bye.